restaurants just filed for bankruptcy so that the OG founders can buy back the chain.
The old Hooters is dead, and Hooters Airlines illustrates why.
That's right, they had an airline. But Jack, let's travel back in time for a moment. 42 years ago, 6 businessmen started a restaurant chain that they couldn't get kicked out of. That wasn't a lead into a joke. That was like what was written on their founding documents for this brand new restaurant chain.
Hooters Incorporated, a place where guys will never get kicked out.
Or if you wanted to shorten that, you would call it Hooters, delightfully tacky yet unrefined.
Hooters, they serve tall drinks served by waitresses in short skirts.
But like the Red Lobster and TGI Fridays, Hooters has become a victim of the macroeconomic environment.
And cultural environment. They got sued recently because they wouldn't allow male waiters.
And now they're ending their Hooters Bikini Nights as well.
Hooters peaked at 400 restaurants doing $1.2 billion in annual revenue, but now they're a third smaller than they used to be.
So here's the news. Hooters just filed for bankruptcy.
The original founders plan to buy back the company from its current ownership and bring some heat back to those wings.
Now, Yetis, this is what Jack and I found fascinating about this story. While everyone was distracted by the Hooters staff, we noticed that Hooters was more experimental as a food chain than we realized.
First, in 1993, Hooters basically pioneered chicken wings as a scalable food at sports bars.
Basically, they realized that the wing of the chicken was the most profitable part of the bird.
But then, over the next 2 decades, as the chain grew nationwide, they really tested the limits of the Hooters brand.
We jumped in T-Boy style. In 2006, Hooters opened a Las Vegas casino that actually lasted 13 years until they shut it down.
And then in 2007, they launched Hooters Energy Drink, which also shut down eventually.
But we're not going to stop there, are we, Jack?
Hooters Airlines was launched in 2003. Hooters leased 7 airplanes from Boeing to launch an airline.
Then they would put 3 of their waitresses as the flight crew on each of those airlines.
What was Hooters Airlines like? Well, same dress code as the restaurants, same chicken wings and beer, just all served at 30,000 feet.
Now, the interesting innovation, I guess you'd call it, Jack, is that they basically turned the entire cabin into a bar, a sports bar.
NFL games and in-flight trivia.
Yeah.
That's what you got on Hooters Airlines.
You like yell bingo from row 34B.
It was a pretty niche market, though. They actually targeted dudes going on golf trips.
It's hard to build a world-class nationwide airline when you're dependent upon single dudes who have a little bit of vacation time.
So after just 3 years, in a tough moment for airlines, we should add, Hooters Airlines shut down in 2006.
Well, now the founders seem to have learned their lesson about just experimenting with too many wild things, and their new strategy is back to the Hooters roots.
Or as they call it, re-Hooterization.
They're actually hoping for a more wholesome, family-friendly vibe when they emerge from bankruptcy. Again, Bikini Night on Thursday, canceled. Can't believe we even have to say that they're doing that. So, Jack, what's the takeaway for our buddies who are delightfully tacky and self-aware over at Hooters?
Virgil Abloh's 3% rule applies to sports bars just as much as it does sneakers.
Yeah, Hooters built something that there was demand for. A sports bar, but man-caveified.
Or to quote the founders, a sports bar that no guy would ever get kicked out of.
And the dress code of the Hooters waitresses was really the only difference. It was a sports bar with a 3% change to the status quo.
The waitresses. That was the difference from a typical sports bar. Just a 3% difference. That's all it took.
Well, Jack and I put our strategy hats on, and famed fashion designer Virgil Abloh, he was famous for this concept. Give the customer 97% of what they know, but just change up 3% to make it feel novel.
Hooters did that, and it worked. But then they went way beyond the 3% change when it came to the airlines and the casino.
I mean, Jack, turning an airplane into a sports bar, that's more than a 3% change. That is a 300% change. Too much.
So now Hooters is returning to their original 3% innovation. A regular sports bar, but 3% more unrefined.
Because the way we see it, Virgil Abloh's 3% rule of innovation applies to sports bars as much as it does to sneakers.